Chosen one, you just survived a coordinated humiliation ritual and your discernment saved your life. Someone from your past just tried to orchestrate your complete social annihilation. They had cameras ready. They had a location picked out. They had multiple people coordinating your downfall. And your discernment saved your life. Maybe you've been second-guessing yourself, wondering if you overreacted to a situation or person. Well, I'm about to prove to you that not only did you not overreact, your gut reaction literally saved your life. And here's what's going to blow your mind. While you were trusting your instincts, there were people behind the scenes orchestrating. Something so calculated, so malicious, that when I tell you the full scope of their plan, you're going to realize just how close you came to complete devastation. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me start with the setup, because understanding how this trap was laid is crucial to recognizing it if it ever happens again. First, there's something else you need to know about the person who approached. Someone from your past made contact recently, didn't they? Maybe it was an old friend sliding into your DMs after months of silence. Could have been an ex-lover suddenly wanting to catch up. Perhaps a co-worker who became unusually friendly out of nowhere. Or even a family member pushing for a reunion after years of distance. And I bet they made it seem so natural, so coincidental. I was just thinking about you. Or, I miss the old days, or we should definitely hang out soon. Here's revelation number 1. None of this was coincidental. This person didn't wake up with genuine nostalgia. They didn't suddenly realize your value. What actually happened was much more sinister, and it involves a group of people who have been watching you longer than you realize. But before I tell you about this group and what they wanted from you, let me reveal something that will make you trust your instincts forever. That feeling you had around this person, that subtle sense that something was off, wasn't social anxiety. It wasn't you being too sensitive. It was your intuition picking up on predatory energy, because this person, they weren't working alone. And what this group was planning to do to you involves recording equipment and a very specific location. Now here's where the story gets really dark, because this person who reached out to you, they're just the recruiter. Behind them is an entire group of people who operate like a pack of wolves, and you, chosen one, had become their target. These aren't your typical bullies or mean girls from high school. This is something much more organized, much more psychological. They have what I call a mob mentality. They band together not because any individual is particularly powerful, but because collectively they feel invincible. Here's how they think. Success means stepping on other people's faces. Elevation means pushing others down. Power means humiliating someone publicly, and they define their worth by destroying yours. But here's what you need to understand about why you specifically became their target. It wasn't random. You've been transforming lately, haven't you? You've been stepping into a new version of yourself, more confident, more discerning, more powerful. They noticed. And while some people celebrate growth, others see it as a threat that needs to be eliminated. This is where their plan gets terrifyingly strategic. They didn't just want to embarrass you at your local coffee shop or during a casual dinner. No, they needed you somewhere specific. Somewhere outside your comfort zone, away from your familiar environment where you feel safe and grounded. Maybe they suggested a trip, weekend getaway, group vacation, family reunion, hiking adventure, wedding, party at someone's house you'd never been to before. The location wasn't chosen for fun, it was chosen for control. Think about it. In an unfamiliar place, you're dependent on them for transportation. You don't know the exits. You don't have your usual support system nearby. If something goes wrong, they control the narrative of what happened. But here's revelation number 2. The location was also chosen because it's where they planned to film you. And what they wanted to capture on that film involves getting you in a very vulnerable state first. I'm getting chills telling you this part because I can literally hear the conversation that was supposed to happen. Someone saying, "I don't feel well," and someone else responding, "Just keep recording." This wasn't about creating memories, Chosen One. This was about creating evidence they could use to destroy your reputation, undermine your credibility, or simply humiliate you for their own twisted entertainment. But to get that footage, they first needed to make you vulnerable. And their method for doing that is absolutely diabolical. The following is a message from Mike, founder of the Obsidian Inner Order, powered by Astral Atom. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you walk through this awakening alone. Never gonna scroll past your suffering like it's just content. This isn't just a rickroll, it's a lifeline in disguise. I built the Obsidian Inner Order because too many of us have been exiled for seeing the truth, cast out by family, gaslit by cults, haunted by gifts we didn't ask for. So now we gather. Every week, live on Zoom. Real people, real faces. A former CFO turned psychic, a seer who escaped Mormonism, a healer who broke free of ritual abuse. And yes, the calls are recorded, so when you're on the floor you can come back to the field. We're not a meme, we're a miracle, and we're never gonna give you up. Join the Obsidian Inner Order, link in the description. Once they had you in their chosen location, the real plan would have kicked into gear. And this is where you need to understand just how calculated and malicious their intentions were. Step 1. Make you vulnerable. Get you drunk or otherwise impaired. Create situations where your guard would be down, where you might say or do something they could use against you later. Step 2. Trigger you emotionally. Bring up old arguments, old grudges, old wounds that they knew would hit you where it hurts. Push your button systematically until you reacted with anger, tears, or frustration. Step 3. Capture it all on film. But not just any footage, edited footage that would make you look unstable, crazy, or out of control, while conveniently leaving out all the ways they provoked you. The end goal? Complete social destruction. They wanted footage they could share with your mutual friends, post on social media, or use as blackmail. They wanted to turn you into a cautionary tale, a laughing stock, a person whose word could never be trusted. Again, ready for revelation number 3? This is the one that's going to make you realize just how serious this threat was. They've been watching you, studying you, learning your patterns, your triggers, your vulnerabilities, and not for days or weeks. For some of you reading this, they've been at this for months, for others years. They know your schedule, they know your favorite places, they know who you talk to, what makes you happy, what makes you angry, what topics set you off. They've been collecting intelligence like you're some kind of military target. Think about those coincidental run-ins you've had lately. Those people who always seem to know just a little too much about your business. Those moments when you felt like you were being watched, but convinced yourself you were being paranoid. You weren't being paranoid. You were being surveilled. But here's where the story takes an incredible turn, because despite all their planning, despite all their surveillance, despite having multiple people working together against you, something happened that they never saw coming. This is where your story becomes absolutely remarkable, Chosen One. Despite everything stacked against you, despite their months of planning and surveillance, despite having a whole group coordinating your downfall, you didn't fall for it. Something inside you started screaming warnings. Your intuition kicked into overdrive. Your body, your stomach, your gut, which is literally your second brain, started sending you danger signals that you couldn't ignore. Maybe you noticed how this person would ask deeply personal, probing questions. But when you tried to ask them questions back, they'd deflect or change the subject. The red flag. Maybe you noticed how they were pushing just a little too hard for you to commit to their plan, their timeline, their location. Another red flag. Maybe their enthusiasm felt performative. Their friendliness felt forced. Their energy felt predatory. That feeling wasn't social anxiety, that was spiritual discernment, and it literally saved your life. But there's an even deeper layer to this story that most people won't understand, involving forces that go beyond the physical realm. Now we're getting into territory that might sound unbelievable, but stick with me, because this explains why. Their attack on you felt so intense, so coordinated, so evil. This wasn't just about petty jealousy or social drama. For many of you, this was spiritual warfare playing out in the physical realm. You weren't just being targeted for humiliation. You were being offered up as a sacrifice. These people have aligned themselves with dark energy that feeds on chaos, destruction, and the dimming of light. And you, chosen one, you represent everything they're fighting against. You represent transformation, elevation, breaking free from toxic cycles. They summon something to help them take you down because their own lives are falling apart. Their existence has become spiritual limbo. They can't create, so they destroy. They can't build, so they tear down. They can't elevate themselves, so they try to drag others into the pit with them. But here's what they didn't count on. You're a creature of transformation. You're a creature of resurrection. They thought they were dealing with someone they could break. Instead, they were dealing with someone who operates under divine protection, and that protection showed up in ways that completely dismantled their plans. Even if you did end up going to their event, and some of you did, you were protected. In real time, the ritual they planned fell through, their carefully orchestrated trap completely unraveled. Maybe the person who was supposed to film got cold feet and backed out. Maybe the location fell through at the last minute. Maybe you got sick and couldn't attend. Maybe you had such a strong gut feeling that you left early. Maybe the whole group dynamic shifted and their plan became impossible to execute. That wasn't luck. That wasn't coincidence. That was divine intervention. Your enemies thought they were playing chess, but they were actually playing against forces they couldn't see, couldn't understand, and couldn't defeat. But here's where this story gets really satisfying, because what they planned for you is about to happen to them instead. Remember how they wanted to humiliate you publicly, how they wanted to expose your private moments for their entertainment, how they wanted to destroy your reputation with carefully edited footage. Well, get ready for some cosmic justice, because everything they planned for you is about to happen to them. We're talking about public exposure of their dirty secrets. We're talking about their private shame becoming public knowledge. We're talking about their reputation being destroyed by their own actions, their own words, their own evil intentions coming to light. The universe has a way of returning energy to its source, and all that malicious intent they directed at you is boomeranging back to them with compound interest. I keep getting the phrase, failure to launch. Their spiritual attacks, their 3D manipulations, their carefully laid plans are all going to fail spectacularly. Instead of destroying you, they're going to expose themselves for exactly who they are. Let me tell you something about yourself that you might not fully grasp yet. You weren't randomly selected for this attack. You were chosen as a target because of who you are, what you represent, and the spiritual authority you carry. You have power that they can sense but can't understand. You have the ability to release spiritual forces that work in your favor against your enemies. Your victory isn't just possible, it's prophetic. It's already written in stone. But here's the part that might challenge you. Sometimes being chosen means you're spiritual bait. You're the strong one who protects the innocent ones. You walk into dangerous situations, not because you're reckless, but because your presence there prevents harm from coming to others. You didn't just survive this humiliation ritual for yourself. You survived it to stop this group from doing this to someone else. You survived it to serve as a wake-up call for the person who was so desperate to join them that they were willing to sacrifice you to prove their loyalty. You are the disruptor, they never saw coming. See, there's something about your energy that threatens their entire collective identity. These people have built their sense of self around being better than others, and your growth, your transformation into someone more confident, more discerning, more spiritually aware, it exposes the emptiness of their foundation. They needed witnesses to your destruction because your humiliation was meant to be their bonding ritual. Think about it. When a group of people participate in destroying someone, together they become complicit in each other's darkness. They create shared guilt that binds them together. Your downfall wasn't just entertainment. It was meant to be the glue that solidified their toxic alliance. But here's what's really disturbing. Some of these people probably don't even dislike you personally. They were just following the group dynamic, afraid to be the one who spoke up and defended you because that would make them the next target. And this reveals something terrifying about how they select their victims. They choose people who represent what they could have become if they had made better choices. You are living proof that transformation is possible, that people can rise above their circumstances, that spiritual growth is real. And that truth threatens the lies they tell themselves about why their lives haven't worked out. Your success story was dismantling their victim narrative, so they had to try to destroy the evidence, which was you living your best life despite whatever challenges you faced. This group that targeted you, they operate with a very specific hierarchy, and understanding this structure explains why the attack on you was so calculated and why it involved so many moving pieces. At the top, you have the puppet masters, the ones who never get their hands dirty but orchestrate everything from behind the scenes. These are often people with some form of influence, resources, or connections that the others want access to. But then you have the lieutenants, the ones who do the actual planning and coordination. They're usually the most psychologically damaged of the group, deriving their sense of power from manipulating others into doing their bidding. Next are the foot soldiers, people like your bait person who carry out the direct contact and manipulation. They're motivated by a desperate need to belong, willing to sacrifice others to secure their position in the group. Finally, you have the audience, people who may not actively participate, but who provide the validation and witness that makes the whole operation worthwhile. And here's the truly sick part. Everyone in this hierarchy gets something different from your destruction. The puppet masters get to maintain their position by proving they can orchestrate complex social destruction. The lieutenants get to feel powerful by successfully manipulating multiple people. The foot soldiers get acceptance and protection from becoming the next target. The audience gets entertainment and the vicarious thrill of participating in someone's downfall without direct responsibility. But there's something they didn't account for in their hierarchy. Your spiritual protection operates outside their understanding of power structures. While they were playing political games and social manipulation, you were operating under divine authority that none of their earthly positioning could touch. They brought human weapons to a spiritual war, and that's exactly why their elaborate, multi-person, carefully planned attack completely fell apart when it met your discernment and divine protection. Now, understanding this structure is crucial for recognizing future threats. I need you to understand that this attack was likely part of a pattern. There have probably been other attempts, some successful, some not. But now that you recognize how these things work, you're going to be exponentially better protected. Here's your survival guide for future attempts. Watch for the bait person, anyone from your past who suddenly reappears with urgent invitations or intense interest in reconnecting, especially if they've been absent during your recent growth phases. Notice the location pressure. Any situation where you're being pushed to commit to unfamiliar environments, especially ones where you'd be dependent on others for transportation or accommodation. Trust the energy red. If someone feels predatory, pushy, or performative in their friendliness, trust that feeling immediately. Your discernment is your early warning system. Question the asymmetry. Anyone who probes deeply into your life but deflects when you ask questions back is showing classic predatory behavior. Honor your gut reactions. If a situation feels off, it is off. Your intuition has now been proven to be life-saving. Never apologize for trusting it. Identify the hierarchy. If you notice someone trying to recruit you into group activities, pay attention to who they're trying to impress and who seems to be calling the shots behind the scenes. What your enemies couldn't have predicted is that their attack on you actually accelerated your spiritual evolution. You went into their trap as one version of yourself and came out braver, wiser, more awakened to the realities of spiritual warfare. They wanted you to feel shame. Instead, you discovered unshakable self-trust. They wanted you to feel isolated. Instead, you learned to rely on divine guidance. They wanted you to feel devalued. Instead, you recognized your true worth as someone worth attacking. They wanted you to feel broken. Instead, you proved you're unbreakable. You passed a test that many people never even realize they're taking. You survived something specifically designed to destroy you, and in surviving it, you've activated a level of spiritual protection and discernment that will serve you for the rest of your life. Your survival of this humiliation ritual isn't just a personal victory. It's a cosmic shift that affects everyone in your orbit. By refusing to be broken, you've broken their power. By trusting your discernment, you've activated protection for others who might have been their next targets. The person who tried to use you as their entry ticket into this toxic group, they're about to learn a hard lesson about the price of betraying someone under divine protection. The group that thought they could add your light to their collection of extinguished flames. They're about to discover that some lights can't be dimmed. Your victory sends a message through the spiritual realm. This chosen one is protected. This chosen one is awake. This chosen one cannot be touched. And that message is going to ripple out to every enemy who thought they could come for you, every person who underestimated your spiritual authority, every force that thought it could use you for its own dark purposes. They tried to write your ending. Instead, they authored their own downfall. Moving forward, I need you to carry this knowledge with wisdom. Not everyone who approaches you has pure intentions. Not every invitation is innocent. Not every reunion is genuine. But don't let this make you paranoid or closed off. Let it make you discerning. Let it make you wise. Let it remind you that you have powerful enemies precisely because you have powerful purpose. The same qualities that made you a target: your light, your growth, your transformation, your spiritual authority. Today, these are exactly the qualities the world desperately needs more of. Don't dim them to make others comfortable. Don't shrink them to avoid future attacks. Instead, step fully into who you're becoming. Own your power. Trust your discernment completely, and remember that every attempt to break you down is actually proof of how much you're rising up. You survived because you were meant to survive. You're protected because you're needed. You're targeted because you're powerful. You're chosen because you're unbreakable. Your story isn't ending with this humiliation ritual. It's just beginning. The people who tried to destroy you have no idea what they've awakened. Welcome to the next level of your journey. It's going to be incredible.